Mobile handheld gaming has changed and evolved a lot over the past 20 years. Classics like the Game Boy, PSP, Nintendo DS, and more recently the Switch and the Steam Deck is available for the more advanced gamer. Mobile phone gaming also had its own evolution of sorts. Remember the Nokia N-Gage? Had a small cult following, but otherwise it was a commercial failure. There were plenty of others who tried to grasp onto that as well, such as the Sony PlayStation phone, and even Samsung tried their best, but all of them failed, and epically. Now, plenty of phones, even flip phones, had games, but they were minimal and clunky to play on buttons like this. Definitely wasn't a great experience. But the mobile gaming landscape started to shift in 2008 with the introduction of the App Store on the iPhone. Now, the App Store actually launched on the iPhone 3G, but lots of people still had the original iPhone. Now, in a previous video, I touched lightly on apps in general that convinced people to buy an iPhone back in the day, but this video is going to focus primarily on gaming on the first iPhone and what that experience looked like. Now, I thought it'd be kind of fun to compare a handheld gaming console of the time, and I feel a most adequate one would be the Nintendo DSi. This was a really popular console as a follow-up to the Nintendo DS, which had already seen a massive success. And I even owned one of these DSi's, in fact, this exact one, at the same time that the iPhone was really starting to blow up. It's really interesting to see the difference because they're not really the same. It's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. But both of them have their own advantages and weaknesses. Now, the iPhone had a full screen multi-touch screen compared to just the one single touchscreen on the DSi, but I mean, the DSi had two screens, so that's pretty cool. Also, full button layout on the DSi versus only a touchscreen on the iPhone. Also, a game cartridge for actual AAA games available on the DS that did not exist on the iPhone. It was limited to just the App Store. Now, we're going to talk much more about the App Store and what it had to offer throughout this video. There's going to be lots to talk about there. Now, some of the games first available on the original iPhone and the iPhone 3G. When the App Store first launched, there were some indie minimalist games that are kind of fun to explore and maybe really nostalgic for some. First up is going to be Cube Runner. Now, Cube Runner is clearly an indie game. It's very minimalist, it's fast-paced, and it kind of reminds me of like a vintage arcade game of sorts. You're basically using that accelerometer to its fullest extent by moving the phone around to keep yourself from hitting the 3D cubes flying at you. Very simple, very laid back, and one of the features that I thought was actually really cool about this was to download extra levels, you had to actually input a URL. I'm not sure what that's all about or where you can find them, but the only levels that this comes with are basically easy, medium, and hard. There's not a lot more to the game. Really simple, but it was really popular when the game first came out. Another indie game that may bring a lot of nostalgia back for some is Jellycar. This took full advantage of the iPhone with multi-touch and the accelerometer being the main ways to play the game. Now, it's a puzzle game that tries to get the car through these specific levels. I'm really bad at it, and it's actually a pretty difficult game to figure out. That's maybe just me, though. I may just not have the comprehension skills to be able to play. It was impressive to see an indie developer really take full advantage of something like the original iPhone and kind of show what gaming could look like. Now, there were plenty of indie games available at the time on the App Store, but major game studios also saw the potential and took a chance and invested early into the iPhone. One of those games was Super Monkey Ball. This was a flagship game that launched with the App Store and was even demoed during an Apple event on the first iPhone. This was a game that was originally on the PlayStation 2, and it brought console-style 3D gaming to mobile. It was a major hit, and I remember seeing it on iPhones all over the place when I was growing up. Now, the evolution continued with mainstays such as Temple Run. That was the OG Subway Surfers that also featured 3D graphics that pushed the iPhone to the limit, as you can tell by the very poor performance on the first iPhone. Now, there was also, of course, Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, and Fruit Ninja, all of which remained mainstays on the iPhones and iPads for years to come. Now, believe it or not, mobile gaming has a 50% market share. That's over PC and console. Now, there's no definitive number that I could find, but rough estimates are around 30% of the mobile gaming market share are smartphones. Now, I'm not trying to glaze the iPhone or Apple here, but I do believe the iPhone played a major role in creating that market. And developers, both corporate and indie, took a chance on the iPhone and really drove the industry forward. Now, a lot of you are going to say Android existed, there were other phones, and a lot more played into this than just the iPhone. But this phone was so revolutionary, and we can't forget that, because of that multi-touch screen and the accelerometer that didn't exactly exist in other phones for quite a while, actually, especially when you compare it to the first iPhone. So, yes, other phones played a role in this market becoming what it is now, but that's all thanks to the iPhone, because this was the grandfather that really laid the groundwork for all of that to happen, and it sort of created a playbook and a pathway for others to follow after seeing that success. Now, there's a lot of exciting evolution even beyond where we're at right now, and that includes cloud gaming. And that's a bit controversial because it's not great, but it also is. It's exciting to see that pathway start to open up, though. Consoles like the PlayStation Portal, which are fully cloud-based, they're not doing so well, so that's not a great sign, but I personally think that's the future of gaming. That's where we're heading now, is actually having all the processing off-site somewhere else. And I can kind of see that pathway opening up. We're seeing those corporate and indie developers start to take that chance again. We'll just have to see where it goes, though, and really, sky's the limit. And I'm personally excited to see how far mobile gaming will continue to advance, even past the first iPhone. I mean, when you consider the amount of time it's been since the first iPhone to where we are now and seeing all of the evolution, there's probably a whole lot more evolution between now and that other almost 20 years now, which is crazy to think. But yes, we're almost to 20 years. So it's going to be exciting to see where it grows. And honestly, I'm really excited to see where we go in the future.